Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Things are getting crazy in the NBA across the standings. That's part of what we're going to do on today's show. We're going to take a look at standings around the league. It is getting into crunch time. Most teams have 9, 10, 11 games left in their season. And so it is the home stretch. We also have some injury updates here, including an injury that happened last night. Keith, I know you were watching it, as was I. Ooh, that Paul George injury. That was, in fact, let's just go ahead and start there. Paul George coming down on his right leg, the knee hyperextended. It's recent reports today suggest he's going to be out for probably the remainder of the regular season. I was concerned it was going to be a lot longer when we saw that injury take place.
Yeah, anytime you see somebody's leg, especially around a knee, going the wrong direction, it's not good. I think what saved him was it was more kind of dead on, so it was
Yeah.
like a full hyperextension versus any kind of like twist or sideways motion or anything. But it was gross, and please, sports broadcasters, like we don't need to see it 38 times from every
Yeah.
different angle. Like I get it, you showed it a couple times, then you went to break, come back, you show it one more time because probably people are flipping over to see what happened, but that's enough. Like that was fine. Like those, I don't know. Like as I get older too, those things make me more and more queasy. I,
Yeah.
I guess, but yeah,
Because you don't feel impervious anymore. You're like, that
exactly.
my knee could do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but my knee could do that walking down the hall, though. That's the problem. It doesn't take going up for a rebound and having Lou Dort challenging for the same ball. And just to be clear, nothing dirty on the play. Just Lou Dort was going for the same rebound Paul George was, and as he landed, they kind of got tangled up. And it was just one of those unfortunate things. Now, like you said, the good news: 2 to 3 weeks before he'll be reevaluated. Now, Trevor and Keith's favorite caution: that's reevaluated. That is not return necessarily in 2 to 3 weeks, but 2 to 3 weeks that's the end of the regular season. So
Mhm.
we're basically 2.5 weeks out from the end of the regular season now. So my guess is we don't see Paul George for the rest of the regular season. Then maybe the play-in tournament if they're in it, maybe the playoffs if they're in that. Maybe my guess is they would for a lot of reasons, but now especially want to stay in the top six and
Yeah.
just go direct to the playoffs, because then I think you have a better chance that he's back and ready to go for the start of the playoffs, because that's roughly another week after the regular season before the playoffs themselves start. So uh you know good news all things considered, but it's just going to make things that much tougher for the Clippers in an already tough spot in the Western Conference.
Speaking of a team in a tough spot in the Western Conference, the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion Williamson is cleared for on-court activity, but it still sounds like he may not play again in the regular season. Um,
Yeah,
Go
another
ahead.
2 weeks, right? Is
Yeah.
the and this is 2 weeks to be reevaluated. Now the good news is this update came with he's cleared for on-court activities. What cleared
Yes.
for on-court activities could be he can shoot, he can go through drills, 1-on-0 drills, or 5-on-0 drills. It doesn't mean he's returning back to play. Generally, that means you're getting close,
Hmm.
ish. And this is a hamstring thing that he's coming back from, not necessarily a tear or anything like that, or a ligament damage or a broken bone. So hopefully he'll be able to ramp up relatively quickly. If it's 2 weeks and he could get cleared to play at the end of the 2 weeks, that gives him maybe a game or two before the play-in tournament. Again, if they're there, my guess is this one comes very much down to where are we at in 2 weeks. Are we, fighting for the play-in tournament, or in the play-in tournament, or in the playoffs? Let's be fair, because it's still a possibility.
Sure.
Then we'll move forward with trying to get him back on the court. If we're not in position for any of those things, it'll probably be yet another year where it's all right. We'll see Zion in the fall.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, I mean, man, we've talked about it so much. Just he is so incredible when he's on the floor. It's his body just doesn't want to play basketball. And you wonder, the weight that he's at, just his build and the explosiveness that he possesses. I don't know what the sustainability is there for him to be able to play season in, season out NBA basketball. I mean, that's a lot that you're putting on your knees. It's a lot you're putting on joints and all that stuff. I hope whatever the solution is, they figure it out because he's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, this is one where I full heartedly support load management. If it's like,
Yeah.
hey, we can get Zion through a season. If he never plays a back-to-back and takes one game a week off or something like that, like we can get him through a whole season, by all means do it, because that's still going to get you to probably 60-ish games, and that'd be great. But yeah, it's tough. My fear is I worry often with him. Are we already pointing towards one of the like all-time what if, kind of
Yeah.
things? Because this is an unrealized potential. We've seen it. He is awesome when he plays. He is unbelievably good. MVP level good, I think. Maybe. If not all NBA for certain, if nothing else, level good, and just can't keep it going for more than short stretches at a time. So I really do hope for Zion, like with so many of these guys, let's get past this one, and then like let's just have like normal stuff, like a sprained ankle that keeps you out for a week, like after
Yeah.
this, like just at least for the next few years, just because I want to see what it looks like with him on the court all the time, because he's so fun to
Yeah.
watch too. So that's the other thing. We're all losing out when he's missing games.
One of the league's bright young talents, and you want to see him get right and be able to stay on the floor. Speaking of bright young talents, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander sounds like playing in back-to-backs may now be a thing. The Thunder have been incredible.
So
They
good.
are they're making a push up the Western Conference now. We're going to get into the standings in just a moment, but they have been absolutely phenomenal. I wish I could fully. I wish they weren't competing with my Lakers, so I could just fully get behind them and root
Like
for them.
lean in and enjoy it.
Yeah,
Enjoy.
because
Yeah.
they've been great. And here they are. They are sitting right now as the 8th seed in the West. They are one game below 500.
No,
And
they're 500. So you might
oh,
need to hit a
I didn't
refresh.
update. I didn't
There
refresh.
you
I
go.
didn't update on that.
Yeah.
They
Yep.
are now the 7th seed. Sorry,
Yeah.
bump them up here. They're the
Even better.
7th seed now in the Western
Yep.
Conference. They're 8-2 in their last 10. And SGA is, I mean, he is phenomenal. I mean, look,
I agree.
you go back to that trade. I think you're taking SGA by himself over Paul George right now.
Yeah, and you've still got picks to come
Yeah,
from that
exactly.
trade, and other stuff has since been spun off other places and in other things that they got in that deal. But yeah, unbelievable how good he has become. He is probably going to make All NBA now, because it looks like he'll play more than enough to get all the votes that he needs. And I think there's a good chance that if this team gets into even into the play-in tournament, he probably makes All NBA. And if it wasn't for Mike Brown and the Kings, Mark Daigneault probably is the coach of the year, because this is often coach of the year goes to which coach's team exceeded expectations the
Yeah.
most. Nobody has exceeded expectations, maybe other than the Kings, than the Thunder. Because I tweeted it last night after they won. I said, I don't even know that the most orange and blue blooded Thunder fan thought they'd be 500 with 10 games to go in the season and battling for a playoff spot. Like you would have to been the kind of fan who thinks I don't even need to look at the roster or know any, like we're winning the title every year. Like that's, kind of what you believe. It's like, that's like the level you would have had to have been at to think this with this team. The funny thing was too, when they asked Mark Daigneault about this after the Clippers win, he was he was very kind of tongue in cheek, and he didn't want to say like, well, yeah, we kept winning games, so like now we may will play them back to backs, but he kind of said it like, well, he's feeling better than he was when we said he wouldn't play back to backs and all those things. And it's like, yeah, I don't know that that's really what's happening. I think it's more of we're all feeling good because we're 500 and fighting for a playoff spot.
Yeah. That team is incredibly well coached. They've been, I mean, absolutely phenomenal. And what always strikes me about them is you can just about set your watch to it. An opposing team makes a run and they go up 5 points, and boom, timeout. The Thunder come out of the timeout, they run something, score, get a stop, come back,
Yeah.
score, game is tied again.
Yeah.
They are so precise with that. They manage games so well, and whenever they seem to need a bucket, they get it. It is absolutely fantastic to watch. I just wish they weren't crushing my Lakers by doing it.
I will say this too: 30 million in cap space, only maybe one or two roster spots to fill this summer, and Chet Holmgren coming back.
Yep.
A major trade, a major signing, whatever it is, they might be legitimately one of the best teams in the Western Conference in like a
They
year
could
or two because
very well be.
Chet looks great. They keep releasing these little workout videos of him and he looks good. My guess is if it wasn't like, hey, let's throw him into the middle of a playoff race with 10 games left in his rookie season, I think he could probably play right now. That's how good he looks. And it's the right decision to make to, okay, let's wait and we'll start him fresh with everybody next year. But man, this team is, and a million draft picks too. So like any trade off they want to make, they can definitely plus it up with, hey, we've got the cap space and the draft picks. They can do anything. And why that's so important is this isn't 30 million in cap space with 10 roster spots to fill.
Yeah.
It's 30 million with one or maybe two roster spots to fill it the most. Like that's like no, that's rare to be in that kind of position, and it's just unbelievable where this team is at. Like I don't want to cut off their season because they're so fun and I want to see what they do. But man, I cannot wait to see what they do this summer.
They have endless possibilities this summer ahead of them. They can do a lot of things, and I'm excited to see what they do. I mean, even if they get into the postseason, like they're the team that's going to be a pain for anybody to deal with. And yeah, this is going to be a fun group to watch from here on out.
Yep.
Uh, let's jump over into our standings here,
Yeah.
and let's take a look. We'll go like this. That works.
There we
Okay.
go.
Starting with the Eastern Conference. So taking a look at the standings, you've got the Celtics are 2 games back. Where I mean, 9 games to go. Is the expectation that they're catch? I mean, the Bucks are 7-3 over the last 10. Celtics 5-5. They've kind of sputtered a little bit when they needed to really surge ahead. Are you more concerned if you're Boston right now with catching the Bucks, or are you more concerned with staying ahead of the 76ers?
Um, it's more concerned with is staying ahead of the Sixers, but I don't think they've given up by any means on catching the Bucks. I think they're still looking at it as, all right, we can still get there if we take care of business. They've got a bunch of home games left. 6 out of their final 9 games are at home. And they're all pretty winnable games. Now that take that as far as you want because that's they haven't necessarily always won all their winnable games, especially recently, but they're coming off a 4-2 road trip. Anytime you're on a 6-game road trip and you come home 4-2, you're feeling pretty good about it. And they absolutely destroyed the Kings last night. So I think for the Celtics, the goal remains, hey, let's give it the next week and a half, 2 weeks, push, try to catch the Bucks. They're not going to do it at the expense of, oh boy, Jason Tatum rolled an ankle, but you got to get out there because we need the 1 seed. They would sit him and have him right for the playoffs. So obviously that's going to be paramount. But just let's see where we're at and let's try to get through and see if we can catch them. And if not, they'll do whatever they can and try to hold off Philadelphia from behind. The other important note is, they're up a game on Philly right now, but they also have the tiebreaker, so that's essentially like a 2-game lead there. So they're doing okay.
So the essential spots to look at in the Eastern Conference at the top, the top 3, it's potential movement between Milwaukee and Boston and potential movement between Philly and Boston. I don't see Philly catching Milwaukee.
Yeah, probably.
I don't see 3-1 there. And then you look at the 4 seed. It's starting to feel more and more like the Cavs are just going to be locked into the 4. The Knicks are looking fairly locked into 5. Brooklyn, are you worried about them potentially getting caught? They're just a half a game behind the Miami Heat here.
I am a little bit because Brooklyn, you can still see both Jock Vaughn and the players are still trying to figure out what are we like, who do we play? He doesn't play the same starting 5, when they're all available. But then his bench groups, he's really kind of still sorting through to try to figure that out. And that's the downside sometimes to the trade deadline being so late in the year is you want it there because you want to know who you are and what kind of team you are before you're making trades. But when it's so late, there's just so few games to figure this stuff out. You're talking 20-25 games left. And for the Nets, they're going through that right now. That they you can tell they're just not certain. And one thing we know with Miami, even when they haven't played well this year, they pretty much know who they are. They know, like, as long as they're there, these are our 8-9 guys we're going to play, and that's going to be how it goes. So I think there's a chance Miami will catch and pass Brooklyn, but it's probably going to be a fight all the way to the end.
Yeah, and it's a challenge because teams just like we saw it this year, teams were just not willing to trade until they hit
Mhm.
the trade deadline and people got serious about it. And that's normal. That's the way it goes.
Yep.
But yeah, so it makes it tough to try to make deals at any point in the season. So people will say, "Oh, we'll just trade earlier then." Well, it's hard when nobody wants to, right? Like no,
Yeah.
well, oh sure, we'll trade,
It takes two to
but
tango.
hey,
Yeah.
we're going to give you our end of the bench guy, and we need a first round pick in return. Like it's just
I'm not trying
that's
to
what
be
you get.
snarky, nor am I trying to defend Rob Pelinka, but I don't think the Lakers hung on to Russell Westbrook for as long as they did because they were fending off offers. I
No,
think it was finding that partner to trade with was part of that issue. I mean that's why I'll never forget how absolutely thrilled you and I were for the Hachimura trade beyond the Lakers portion of it, just because we finally have a
something
trade.
happened.
Like,
Yeah.
let's go. Let's record a 7-hour live show breaking this down from all angles. So it was but I think that's kind of here to stay now. I don't think
Yeah.
that's going to change. I think we're going to see more and more this kind of drag into later and all the way probably into trade deadline week.
So we've got, in terms of Brooklyn strength of schedule, they have the third easiest strength of schedule from here on out, according to Tankathon. So that could help them out a little bit. Atlanta, Toronto, it's certainly in the mix. There could be some shuffling between 8 and 9, and we know there's a big differentiator there. If you're in the play-in, 8 is a double elimination situation, 9 is single elimination, and then you've got the Bulls right there, half a game back as well. The Bulls a game and a half back of the Hawks, and the Bulls have won 3 in a row. So they're playing good basketball. I think though most likely what we're going to see them do is create more separation from the Pacers and the 11th seed
Correct.
rather than catch the Hawks at 8.
Yeah, for a while I thought Washington might hang around in there, but they've lost 3 in a row. They're 2-8 in their last 10. They're really not playing well. Now, we know the Wizards and Pacers, they're not Pacers have kind of turned the corner a little bit on this, but the Wizards, they're not going to shut it down. They are going to play hard all the way through. That's just the way they are there. So I'm not going to say that they're going to all of a sudden fall out of this, but yeah, it's kind of, I think we're down to, all right, this is what it is here. It's the, um, I think we're probably our 10. It's going to be order that we're still waiting on.
Okay. And then just looking at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, let me scroll down a bit here. In Detroit, no worries here for Detroit. Well, you know what? I'll switch it to when we start getting into the tanking teams. I'm going to
Yeah,
switch it to the whole league view.
yeah,
Let me
that's
do
it.
that.
We'll do those four together at the end.
Let's move on to the West.
Yep.
So the Denver Nuggets sit in a top 3.5 game lead over the Memphis Grizzlies. I think they can feel pretty confident Denver is going to finish as the number 1 seed in the West, even though they have
Mhm.
sputtered a bit recently. I know a lot of people are using this to diminish Jokic's MVP push, and maybe rightfully so, like, especially when it's so close between him and Embiid. But in terms of the Nuggets as a team, this is kind of what happens when you're the 1 seed. Like, it's hard to bring it every single night when hey, we're feeling pretty good about where we're at. We're probably not getting caught. It's just the way it is. So I'm not that surprised that Denver hasn't looked the best recently, but I would expect them to turn it back on as we get to the postseason.
Yeah, I would feel very confident too in saying I think Jokic is past the we got to win a bunch of games in the regular season so I can win MVP again. I think if it is, hey, we sacrifice some regular season wins to get everybody right, and that costs me MVP, but we're going to make a deeper playoff run. I think he's all in on that. I think that's just the point in the arc of this team is where they're at. We saw very famously over the last few years, that's where the Bucks got to. They stopped pushing to win every possible regular season game, and that was a big part of why they finally broke through. Yeah, probably cost Giannis a little bit in the individual awards, but they were still kind of doing what they needed to do to get there. So yeah, but I'm with you. I think I did the Kings a couple losses in a row now. That dream of them running down Denver is over.
Yeah.
Memphis, maybe, but it would
They've won
take
3 though. Memphis has
yeah,
without Ja, and now they're getting Ja back.
it would take the Grizzlies playing out of their minds the rest of the way, and Denver really not figuring it out for them to catch them. So I
Yeah.
think, I think that's probably going to be the order now too. I think it'll be Denver, Memphis, Sacramento in the top 3.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Clippers without Paul George, maybe they are vulnerable there at 5. I feel a
Mhm.
little bit better if I'm the Phoenix Suns now that you're not going to get chased down by the Clippers at 4. So that would give them home court advantage in the first round. The Warriors sitting a game back of the Clippers. Does that flip, do you think, by the time we get to the postseason?
I mean, now Warriors, Thunder, Mavs, Timberwolves,
Yeah, yeah. I
Jazz,
mean, really,
Lakers.
any
I
of
mean,
them.
really, it's you're talking 2.5 games all the way down to New Orleans. So that could go a completely different way. What I'm wondering now with the Clippers, let me pull up their schedule here because I want to check something. If they've got back to backs, do you now say like, all right, Kawhi, we need you. Like, you got to play both ends. Let's see. They have one more back to back. It's the last 2 games of the season. They play Saturday versus
Oh,
Portland and then Sunday at the Suns. Which
I
that
don't think they
Sunday
play them for
Suns
both
game
those.
could be huge, right?
It
But
could be. I guess it depends on where
oh, I'm
things are
sorry,
in
they
the
have two
standings.
more because they have another one. It's Friday, March 31st, Saturday, April 1st. Um, is it now like we need you out there? Like you got to play both ends. I'm very curious to see how they approach that.
Yeah, especially if they're in danger of falling into the play in, then you probably
Mhm.
have to and
Yeah.
just play them and go. But then again, the Clippers have been the team for like a little while now, a few seasons now, who we don't care about the regular season. We just want to be healthy for the playoffs. That's
Hmm.
been kind of their MO. So if anybody's going to say, well, we don't care if we fall to the play in or whatever, it would be them, right?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, now we saw that's cost them too.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's something different. But this is part of why you went out and got Eric Gordon so you could have that depth. And, if we lost somebody, hopefully we can get through. But it's important to remember Norman Powell is still out for this team. So let's just say Ty Lue in the front office there, along with the players, they've got some decisions to make now,
Mhm.
especially in that back-to-back set. You can't throw away any more games either just because it's like, we don't want to travel with the roster there. You got to try to win these games because you will end up in the play-in otherwise.
Okay, now the madness of the Western Conference. The true madness here. The 12 seed New Orleans Pelicans are a game and a half behind the 6 seed. And who the hell knows what's going to happen? I mean,
Yep.
this is a jumbled as much of a mess as you can get, and you look down the row with the exception of the Thunder, everyone is either 5-5 or 4-6.
Yep.
The Thunder moved up because they're 8-2. Everybody else is just win one, lose one, win one, lose one,
Yep.
right? Everybody 4-6, 5-5, 6-4, right? That's nobody is like seizing control. Nobody is falling completely out of things. This is going to be an insane finish in the Western Conference, and like flip a coin as far as who's going to get where.
And they all have a lot of games left against each other
Yep.
too. There's a whole bunch of games like that. So yeah, that's the part that you made, the point you made there. That is the part that sticks with me so much when I look at this. I'm like, it never changes. Everybody is basically 500 for their last 10 games. It's win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win two.
Yep.
And all right, I kind of, all right, they're figuring it out. I'm ready to buy in. Oh, wait, they lost
Lose
3 in a
two.
row. And it's like, what are we doing here? Like, yeah, it's incredible. And they're all kind of, other than the Warriors, whose profile is just insane, of they're incredible at home and awful, awful on the road. Everybody else is the profile of a average team, which is
Yeah.
pretty good at home and then not so
A little
great
bit
on the
worse
road.
on the road. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just kind of what you usually see with a team that's right around 500, which is why all these teams are right there. But this is where, so like, let's do Dallas. Sounds
Yep.
like tonight they're going to get Luka Doncic back. That's huge, right? Because having him gives you a better chance of winning. Minnesota is getting Karl Anthony Towns and likely Anthony Edwards back tonight.
Yeah.
Huge, gives you a chance of winning. Lauri Markkanen's going to play for the Jazz tonight. The Lakers, what is LeBron? When are we going to see him? Right, that's
Maybe,
the question.
maybe we'll know
Right?
more tomorrow or Friday.
Mm-hmm.
We're waiting. Pins and needles. Pins and
Yep.
needles.
So let's see what that looks like. And we already talked about Zion for the
Yep.
Pelicans. So getting somebody, or like we talked about with the Clippers, losing Paul George, that could completely swing things. Because what you can't afford this late in the year in this type of a race is a bad week where it's like,
No.
all right, well, we lost 4 games this week, and because a 4-game losing streak, if everybody else keeps just doing the 500 thing, it doesn't sound like that's that crazy. If everybody else goes 2-2 in the week and you go 0-4, but that's 2 games that you lose
Yep.
on everybody else. And
Got
that's
to
when
keep
you're going to
pace.
put yourself in a spot where you're just not going to make it. And then Portland just kind of, they're
I
out
think
of
they're
it.
out.
Like,
They're out.
yeah, like I mean, they're 4 games out of the play-in now. You get Damian Lillard openly talking about like it's hard to care anymore. I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing very much, but that's basically what he said. So Chris Haynes already reported, and like we always say, when Chris talks about Dame, it's important to
From
listen
Dame.
to.
Yep.
Just like he's probably going to get shut down here in the next couple of days, so they're out of it. And then I know we're going to do the bottom 4,
Yeah.
all together here. So Portland's kind of like the Orlando of this conference, where it's like, all right, except going in different directions, right? Like Portland's, that's disappointing, and you feel sad about it. Where Orlando, it's like, all right, kind of building on something here. You get to the 30-win plateau when you're moving up.
And I had, I'm not surprised this is where we're at right now. I'm not surprised with OKC. I've been saying they're a good team for a bit, but Utah has surprised me because they had such a difficult strength of schedule and they found ways to win games you wouldn't expect them to
Yeah.
win. So they were the other team that I was expecting to drop out along with Portland. And instead, they've won some games where they were the heavy underdog and found a way to get that done.
Yep.
All right, let's
I'm with you on that one. I thought Utah was going to fall out, and I thought when OKC kind of lightly hinted at, we're going to play SGA in these back to backs, and if he's feeling sore, we're not going to play him. I was like, all right, they're kind of basically telling everybody, hey, we're pretty done too, and both of them just keep winning enough games to hang around.
All right, at the bottom, Orlando. I think they are pretty locked in to their spot. I don't think and when we say catching, when we're into this tier, we're talking about losing more games. It's the other way. We flip everything here. But in terms
Here's
of
what
Orlando, go ahead.
Say with Orlando, Portland could catch them, because if Portland sits Dame, and then let's say they're like, you know what, Anthony Simons doesn't need to play either, and all of a sudden it's 45 minutes of Keon Johnson and insert G League call up guard here, starting, or Ryan Archie-Diacono who's on their roster. Those 2 guys are playing 45 minutes a night in the backcourt, like we saw Portland do last year. They could completely fall apart, bottom this thing out, because I don't think Orlando's going to win their final 9 games or anything, but I do think I could see a world where they pass Orlando in the race to the bottom, just because they're. But no, they're not catching Charlotte.
No, that's that. Yeah, that's what I was going. They're obviously not catching Charlotte, and I also don't think Charlotte is catching San Antonio.
Correct.
San Antonio is too good at losing games. Although they are 4-6 in their last 10, which is surprising. And then Houston is 5-5 in their last 10. And maybe to their detriment, I don't know if Houston can catch Detroit now. I mean, Detroit has lost their last 4. They're 1-9 in their last 10. And Houston has, accidentally won a few games. I think the way it is right now, aside from maybe Portland catching Orlando, I think this is going to be the final standing.
I think there's a chance here too. And here's the one thing I'll say with the Rockets is they are already playing all their kids and have been all year. They don't have vets to sit to lose games. Detroit has stopped playing Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks, who are helping them stay in games and even win a game here and there. They are playing full on their kids. And it's like Wiseman and Bagley and Jalen Duren and big man lineups and all this crazy stuff, because it's just, hey, we're playing out the string here and getting a look at these guys. Houston may keep winning games just
San
because
Antonio might catch them.
That's it. I think they could end up, flip-flopping with San Antonio, because I think for San Antonio, they are still, they've got some guys that they could sit to really kind of bottom this thing out fully. They've still got a couple more guys. They could, for example, say Zach Collins is done for the year, who I know a lot of people probably aren't paying a lot of attention to the Spurs anymore. Zach Collins is having an incredible year. And if you look at his numbers since the trade deadline, all of a sudden you're like, San Antonio's got their starting center for next year on the cheap. And that's a big part of going to be how they can build that roster. And he has been very, very good for the Spurs.
And Keldon Johnson's been dealing with the neck thing. So, I mean, I believe he sat last night
on the roster. Yep.
It wouldn't surprise me if they, say, hey, no rush to get back.
Here's why that's important, right? We always talk about the flattened lottery odds and all that stuff at the bottom that everybody gets all, crazy about. And it's like, well, they're all going to have the same odds. But the difference is if you get bumped back, you're only, if you're Detroit, for example, one team jumps up to number one, well, you're only getting bumped back to two, right? That's why you still want to be at the bottom, even if the lottery odds themselves are flat. Like that's the difference with this. So I think we're in a spot where we see this, and that's where I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because we'll talk it later, probably with a week or so to go in the season. But that's why for Orlando and Portland being fifth, it's not so much about the top overall odds, but it's about, well, that gives you really good odds at staying up higher in the draft,
Yeah.
right? Like not pushing back into that middle of the first round grouping and those kind of things. And then we'll do this much later when things start to settle, definitely pre-lottery, because there's a lot of, well, this team could do this if their pick falls here in the lottery and all that sort of stuff. But that we'll save that for down the line after things a little more sorted out.
All right. Things are wild heading into the playoffs. That is for sure,
Love it.
particularly in the Western Conference, but there's movement, potential all over the place in the final. What again, most teams have 9 or 10. So I think there might be a few with 11
Yeah.
games left in the season. It's going to be a crazy final stretch, and we'll see what things ultimately look like as we start to get ready for the play-in tournament. But
let's all agree, turn injuries off from here on out. We don't need
please,
any more injuries. Let's
please,
just keep everything, and let's do even return everybody from injury that's hurt right now.
yes,
Let's just get them all back. Even the guys who've been out all year, like bring them back for the last little bit here, and we'll go from there. But
we have the ability to do. We should be able to do.
sure, yeah.
Somebody get
why
the
not,
time
right?
stone or something, and
Oh,
let's do that.
simulation anyway.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, give us your thoughts. Let us know what you think about the playoff race around the NBA in the comment section down below over on the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribing there as well. Of course, don't forget to go follow the podcast version of this show over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Oh boy, buckle up, everybody. It's going to be a fun final few weeks here of the NBA season. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.